Hey everyone, welcome to the Obsession Commentary. So, we're going to take this in three parts because when we recorded this, it ran longer than usual. But here's Obsession Commentary Part 1. Got a big episode today, Kern.
Yeah, very, very big one. This one is something I think the whole world has become obsessed with, some would say. And it's become like just the most unbelievable phenomenon I've ever seen for especially a horror movie to kind of take over at in this level and with such a small budget to explode the way that it has. It's just unbelievable. So we did our best to really dig into this thing and hopefully everyone enjoys it.
Yeah, man. This thing has climbed the charts, breaking records. I think you were saying on your news episode, it's now the sixth highest grossing horror film of all
Yeah.
time. That's crazy. Came out of nowhere.
Ridiculous. And its budget was 750,000. It made a buku bucks worldwide. 500 million is just an absurd number for a movie that was made with such a tiny budget. So obviously this movie connected with people on a level that not many have. And I think that's something that we as fans, especially fans of horror, can really get excited about because I think that this will encourage more people to make very unique, creative, original stories instead of rehashing the same old shit. Hopefully. Horror seems to be that genre that taps into original creative storytelling more than I would say more than almost any genre, at least for when it comes to film. Because obviously fantasy, I mean, there's the core hardcore stories of fantasy, but I think horror is an extension of fantasy, and it seems to be the one where people explore some of the most unbelievably creative and dark aspects of human life and of society in a way that feels like inviting, but also at the same time spikes your adrenaline through the roof. So you just get like addicted to it. So I'm really hoping that with movies like this and with the success of Backrooms, we just get more and more shit like this in the future.
And what's crazy is before we get started here, we get really packed with schedule on this show. And usually, with this being a fantasy show, this isn't something we'd immediately say before it came out. Oh, we're covering that. But this thing broke so many records. Originally we had in our mind, like, oh, we might cover Supergirl or something like that. This thing crushed all those things, put it on our radar, and now it's going to be one for the books. So
Yeah. I
it's
mean, and even
impressive.
before it like became a smash hit, I was invested in this one because of the director, because of Curry Barker, how interesting it was that the dude I watch his freaking skits, been watching them for forever on YouTube, and he comes out with a horror movie. And you think about how horror, and he says this all the time too, horror and comedy are not too far apart. So like honestly, they're like this, they're intertwined. So for him to step into this realm, I'm like, oh shit, I'm all over this. Because if his horror is half as good as his comedy, it's going to be excellent. And then seeing it finally, it took me a little while to be able to actually see this one, but once I saw it, I'm like, dude, this movie, this is like truly, I think, a perfect horror movie in every aspect, which is very rare.
And one thing that makes me think about why this movie overall is so great before we dive into it in the full in-depth breakdown is we were talking about a couple weeks ago is one thing that made movies so great way back in the day is being more localized. And I
Yeah,
feel like that's something this movie does is yes, the horror aspects are really cool, but at the same time, I think the characters in this story are so relatable for people that you feel like you
yeah,
might have ran into in high school or you might have known and how much of a like emotional just down gritty story this is versus you're going planetarium again like Marvel. Like this is such a down to earth story of something that you could see. Like of course we know it's got the supernatural element, but you could see something like this, at least the character interactions happening with people maybe you knew in life at some point.
Yeah. I mean, look, you take the supernatural out of this movie, and you might have known someone, or you might have been that person that went through a relationship like the one that's kind of being portrayed in this movie. Again, minus the crazy supernatural insanity that happens in this movie, the like the underlying subtext of everything in this movie is basically toxic codependent relationships. And so that's very real. And so to make a horror movie out of that is genius. And so I think in that way too, a lot of people probably were able to relate to this because maybe they've known someone or they went through something like this. And that makes it scary as shit on its own because you're kind of like having a PTSD moment watching this movie. But I think in that way also, it's kind of like a fucked up version of Friends. It really is, like, because Friends, it was following the core group of people and you fell in love with these characters and you felt like these were people that you would like to hang out with and it felt like you were a part of their friend group. Well, they did something very similar in this movie and it made it feel very grounded, like you were saying. These feel like people that you have met, that you've known in your life. It feels like you know these people. And I think that it feels so raw in a way that that rawness of it really helps keep it much more grounded than something like what you're saying that goes interplanetary or like the whole world is at stake, things like that. And I think horror truly is the medium that does that better than anyone else because most of the horror stories are grounded like a family getting haunted, a haunted house, a lot of things like that that are more so grounded in like smaller stories that you can kind of really throw yourself in. I think that's where horror really excels, and this is no exception. This movie's incredible.
Let's dive into it, man.
Hell
We got a lot
yes.
to get into. So, scene one, we're in this diner and we're introduced to our first main character, Bear, and he's pouring his heart out to this girl and saying everything how he wants to really tell his feelings of how he has always loved this girl more than a friend and wants to know how they feel. And it turns out that the whole time he's like practicing on the waitress. And his best friend is right next to him and is giving him shit for it. He's like, man, that was awful. And Bear says, I just poured my heart out here. He's like, and thank God because it was bad. And don't try that shit on Nikki because Nikki doesn't like that shit at all. And it brings up some questions about this scene here. One, how relatable is it? I feel like both of us at least have known people in high school or in the past that have always had that one friend in the friend zone. Literally,
I know that
um,
intimately.
and that always
We know
always
someone.
goes along with whatever this girl wants, and secretly she's probably, if you listen to the dramatized recap, maybe is into somebody else that we'll reveal later on. Um, how relatable is this to you, Kern?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the scene is relatable only in the sense that it feels real, like it feels realistic. I can't say I've ever done personally what Bear did in this scene with like a random stranger pouring his heart out because that's a little over the top. But I think this opening scene kind of perfectly sets the story in motion and it tells you so much about Bear like right off the bat. You can hear how truly in love and obsessed he is with Nikki right away, and it makes you kind of immediately believe that the movie title is specifically about Bear's obsession with this girl Nikki, which makes the audience kind of feel like comfortable thinking how this movie's going to go, but it's secretly setting up the reality of the film that like where nothing is really as clear as you think it is. So I think it's a really good way to not only introduce the main character, but also kind of set you on this path where you think you know what's going to happen, but you have no fucking idea what's going to happen because this movie just twists at every opportunity. And it's interesting because in this scene, did you also notice that the waitress that Bear is talking to here is wearing a pink headband and a pink shirt? And that same outfit comes out later when Nikki's wearing it later on in the film when their relationship kicks off. It's just a
See,
little
that's interesting. I didn't
interesting
notice
nugget.
that at all.
Yeah. She's wearing a pink headband and the pink shirt. And we'll talk about it later, but that's something to keep your eye on because it does pop up again later. And I have questions about this, but we'll get to that in a second. I just feel like that was an interesting little nugget here. But as for it being relatable, I mean, like I said, it's only relatable and so as it just feels like a realistic scenario that some like one of your friends who was kind of shy and strange and wasn't sure how to talk to girls would want help from someone who does, like a friend who he thinks is good with girls, like he thinks his friend Ian is or Cooper in the movie. So I think it's realistic in that sense. I just think it's cool how they start the movie like this, immediately throwing you in and telling you what's going on and what the basic premise of the movie is, but then totally taking that premise and flipping it on its head throughout the rest of the movie.
But then you have this point where, as Ian, Bear's best friend, is giving him advice, he even mentions, he's like, "Have you ever even flirted with Nikki? Um, you know, invite her for drinks or something." And then he reminds Bear of in class where his teacher or professor used to call her Freaky Nikki, and he jokes with him to call her that. So the question is, is Ian being a good friend here, or is there some other intentions maybe going on?
Yeah, well, I think Ian is like the typical guy friend in this scenario. He chimes in and says the stuff Bear is saying is gross, even though Bear is busy pouring his heart out and being as romantic as he possibly can. Ian's just like, that's disgusting. I underestimated you. When he's like, Bear's like, you told me to pour my heart out. He's like, yeah, but I underestimated you. That was awful. But the waitress seems to be enjoying it. Like Ian says it's disgusting, but the waitress is really receptive to it. She's like, I loved it. I thought that was really sweet. So it kind of makes me wonder a little bit if this is like a seed of Ian kind of not wanting Bear to say these types of things to Nikki because Ian is secretly hiding his relationship with Nikki and he likes her. So is it possible that he was also using this moment to kind of discourage him from being open and honest with Nikki? Maybe. Like Ian tells Bear that Nikki wouldn't like all that sappy stuff, just be way less sappy, no flowers, none of that stuff. She wouldn't like it, which implies Ian like really knows what she likes and what she doesn't like, which to me kind of hints that their relationship is closer than we think it is from the get-go. I think these are like little breadcrumbs sprinkled in early in the movie to get you thinking and connecting dots. And it makes the revelation about Nikki and Ian like make way more sense too in the end because you've kind of been primed without even realizing it. And I just think it's funny that the waitress is like super into it in contrast to what Ian is saying. So like maybe if Bear went with what he said to the waitress instead of listening to dumbass Ian, it would have actually worked out potentially for him. I mean, I don't believe Ian is like a true villain though. I don't think he's like a complete asshole because I think despite all the possibilities of like what was happening in this scene, I think that Ian genuinely wanted to help Bear and it's evidenced by Ian's actions like later on in the film. I just think that the writing makes you question everything in this movie, which has led to so many freaking theories popping up all over the internet and people doing basically entire dissertations on the meanings behind every single thing in this movie. So like there's so many things in this movie that take on a life of their own and it goes far beyond what the creator thought of or intended. And I think that just kind of goes to show how people have gone through different experiences in their lives can interpret the same situation so differently. I think it's kind of like this movie's like a worldwide psychological experiment going on all at once, like right in front of us. But I think I have also kind of a more simplistic interpretation of the scene, and that's that I think it also fits the narrative really well because maybe the waitress liking what Bear was saying was simply meant to contrast Nikki in like such a way that later on in the movie when we see Nikki change from the free-spirited like true version of herself to a more emotionally intense and dependent version from Bear's wish, it shows how like real Nikki would probably not have actually liked the things Bear was saying to her, but Wish Nikki would love it because Wish Nikki tries to do whatever she thinks Bear will love most, which would explain her also wearing that pink headband and pink shirt to mirror the waitress later on in the movie. And like the waitress kind of contrasts Nikki's personality right from the get-go, which might be saying that like the waitress is the version of Nikki that Bear imagines Nikki to be. And maybe it's the version that he wanted for himself because he is kind of like a sensitive and easily influenced guy himself. It's like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a good point. Wish Nikki is literally the wish that Bear made. Like it literally is Nikki becomes the actual wish Bear wanted. And the
Hmm.
more and more he's involved with Nikki is the more and more that wish grows into the complete circle of everything he literally wished for. It just didn't go the way he planned, is what I truly think.
Hmm.
Which, if you really think about it, it really is. Like, she loved him more than anyone in the fucking world. So, I mean, be careful what you wish for, I think is
Yeah.
the true story behind this. Um, but then we have this next scene that happens where Bear comes home and his cat Sandy is passed away on the floor with she has gotten into pills that was in Bear's drawer, which really makes me wonder because we saw this scene at the end of the movie where the pills were actually in, the medicine cabinet drawer that was
You
in his
see them there in the
bathroom.
in that scene too.
Hmm. So it brings up this question like, how did the cat get into the pills? Has Bear secretly been depressed this entire time? Is there more going on here than what it seems? Which, first of all, I felt terrible for him. This guy is actually going through it. But then you read more into the scene. You wonder if is that intentionally like that or was it just bad writing? Maybe something's going on with Bear. Like, how did Sandy get into these pills? What's your thought?
Yeah. Well, they show you in that scene. So when he goes in there and he's cleaning up after he finds Sandy and he's grieving, he gets the pills and he goes into the bathroom and he goes to put them away and the mirror on in the bathroom is open. It's one of those mirror cabinets that you close and then it has like all the shelves behind it. And that's where you see all the pills in his mirror cabinet. But the door he puts the pills away and then the camera zooms in on the pills to show you that it's oxycodone and that it has his grandma's name on it. And so like he tries to close the cabinet and it doesn't close and he keeps trying to close it and then he has to slam it shut. And I think that's how the cat got it. It's telling you right there that I think that he didn't close the mirror all the way and it was left open. The cat gets in there and takes the bottle and somehow chews the lid off, which that's the part that's curious because he if it has one of those child protection lids on it that are really notoriously difficult to open even for adults. So like the fact that it had that lid on there and somehow the cat managed to get it off, I'm like, was the bottle open? Does that imply that Bear was maybe taking them for whatever reason? I don't know. It doesn't explicitly say that or like show. There's nothing really clear that's saying he's a drug user other than them showing the pills because just showing them like they're there for a reason. I think the pills are there because the grandma was living in this house, so it's not like they were his. But was he using them? I don't know. It doesn't really explain that too much, and I think it's left for you to decide. But I think in that scene, it shows you exactly how Sandy got him. I mean, that obviously the mirror was open, and so Sandy must have jumped in there and grabbed him, and then chewed the lid off, and then ate him and OD'd on him. And so like you could say, is that Bear being reckless? Like, I don't know if he was necessarily being reckless, but like we see, his behavior is kind of reckless and erratic in the rest of this movie. So maybe, like it's just a weird scene, but I think that the reason why the cat gets it is specifically because of that. Like the mirror is open and the cat jumps in and just happens to grab those and ODs on him. But the question of the lid is the only thing that I have in my mind. Was the lid open or like partially off, or did the cat just chew it off? That's my question. But I see how the cat would get him. And I think it's a really like creative way of showing you that it wasn't necessarily that he was doing the drugs, it's just that he had them. And it also sets up things for later in the movie.
And I'm assuming it's implied that he's been using his grandmother's leftover medication.
I don't know. Like, there's no real evidence that he's been using them. because they're all in the cabinet still. You don't see any pill bottles lying around the house. Like the only one that you see is when the cat has it and he's on the floor and dead next to the pill bottle. And then it shows him, slamming the thing, trying to close it. The only thing I could say that's interesting about that scene though is like he didn't throw them away. So that would make you wonder, why didn't he throw all those pills away? Like, why does he have all of those pills? Why didn't he just throw them out? That could make you think as like implying that maybe he was taking them, but I don't think it was that type of movie where he was a druggie. I think he was just weird, and like very shy and awkward. He could have been maybe taking them because he's depressed and maybe obsessed or anxious about Nikki, and like maybe that's a possibility. But I don't know, man. I don't think he was taking them, and I don't think it really necessarily strongly gives you evidence that he was taking the drugs.
It just makes you wonder because then if he was, like, one, imagine how depressed this kid already probably is. Losing their grandmother, now just lost their cat, stuck in the friend zone. That's rough.
It
That's
is rough.
rough.
Yeah.
And then it shows even more how obsessed he is because he's grieving over his cat. But as he's grieving over his cat, he lies on the bed. And maybe it's to take his mind off of it, but he starts scrolling through Nikki's Instagram, like stalking her Instagram pictures.
Yeah.
So, and then of course she calls him and tells him that she's going to be quitting work and he's fighting back tears because Sandy just died and she wants him to go to trivia. Anyone in their right mind that just lost their pet is like, fuck no, I'm not going out tonight. He just like agrees with it and like sucks it up, swallows his tears, and forces himself to go to trivia. And then the crazy part is, even with all that on his mind, during this conversation, remember, Nikki drops her crystal necklace, which, one, that's a weird fucking thing to say. So it kind of makes me think too, like, was she into crystal necklaces, or maybe
Well,
like,
obviously.
who knows? This brings up an interesting question I never really thought of before, though. Do you think Nikki was into that weird, like, one wish willow crystal necklace kind of shit? Because otherwise, why would she have one?
Well, yeah, obviously she was. She had a crystal necklace. So she was wearing it and she dropped it and she was like, "Oh shit." Like, cuz she obviously, it meant something to her obviously, and she dropped it. And so Bear, thinking he was, like, he hears that and he's like, "Oh, well, I'll go get her something new." So obviously I think that shows the side of her. She's a creative. We know this, like her personality at least, and we know this from watching the movie. You don't know it at this point, but it makes sense with her character that she would have like a crystal necklace. And so, yeah, but I mean, going like, if you go back though to the scene with the cat, when Bear is on the floor and he's like grieving over the cat, he's like, "No, no, 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 no." Where have you heard that one before? Later on in the movie, it's just weird how there's parallels even early in the movie between what he's doing and what Nikki is going to do in the future. And so I think it's really interesting in that scene, the way that he's grieving, you hear that again. But like, it's weird because you think, was he like neglecting Sandy, or what, like, because he's scrolling Instagram right after all of that, and it makes you wonder, was he scrolling on her fucking Instagram when he was going to like close the mirror and like didn't close the mirror all the way because he was looking at his phone and left it open, and then the cat was able to get in and steal the shit? Or was it just something like an innocent, he just forgot to close the mirror? But then again, why was the mirror open? Because that's where the pills were. So like, there's a lot of things that hint maybe he was doing it, maybe he wasn't. It's not like super clear, but it's clear that what's distracting him and what's like absolutely dominating, consuming his every waking thought is Nikki. And so like, even though he's mourning and he's in his bed and he's crying and he's whatever and he's scrolling through the pictures, as soon as she calls, big smile on his face, he picks it up immediately. And then like, he decides in that conversation, I mean, he decides to go because she like, Nikki's like, "Oh, you should come out tonight." And he's like, "Oh, I don't think I'm going to make it tonight." And she's like, "Well, I wanted to tell you something." And she tells him she's putting in her 2 weeks, and you can visibly see in this scene, Bear clenches his jaw like he's getting angry that she's going to be leaving. So like, right away in the beginning, right there you can kind of see his unhealthy attachment to her, outside of the fact that he should be grieving and he's scrolling through her Instagram. But he, right in that moment, is like clenching his jaw. He's pissed when she says, "I'm putting in my 2 weeks," and so like she's like, "So you should probably come out tonight because we're running out of time." Again, coinciding with the time that was in the very first scene when he's like, "All you have is time." Ian saying, "All you have is time." So again, even here, she's like, "You should come out tonight because we're running out of time." And as she says this, Bear is looking directly at a clock, which is also pretty interesting. So like the time seems to be an apparent thing even right off the bat. And it's an interesting contrast because like Ian saying all you have is time. Now Nikki's saying we don't have a lot of time before she leaves for the job, and like all this pressure from time. And then Bear's just like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna go. I love this girl so much. I don't care. I don't care about my grieving for my cat that literally just died. I'm gonna go anyway because I'm infatuated with this person.
Absolutely. And then, of course, he cares about his cat, but clearly cares so much more about Nikki. Goes and gets her a gift to replace the crystal necklace. Goes to the shop after meeting the girl at the counter, right? He finds the One Wish Willow and he's like, "Is it like a scam?" And she's like, "We're not scammers here, man." He's like, "Well, like, cause it doesn't work." And then she even says, she's like, well, some of them are collectibles, or they come back and wish they were dead." Like,
Well, yeah,
I mean,
he's like, she says people complain about him. He's like, why are they
yeah.
complaining? And she, because it doesn't work. And she's like, oh yeah, or it does, and they wind up dead.
But it's so much
So good.
foreshadowing already,
Mhm.
just in that moment right there. And one thing that really impressed me so much is the marketing for this movie, just based on that scene. Because when you see the One Wish Willow, the fact is you can actually go buy those now. They made a replica shop of this magic shop where you can go in and buy those, and it's like $7.99 and some change, exactly what she said when you check out. And now everyone's been like trying to buy those and like break them, and you can buy them online. I
Uh,
want to keep one in a glass case that just says
yeah, I'd like to
break
get
in
one of
case of
those.
emergency. Yeah, that would be sick.
It's yeah.
One thing I thought too was on the actual when he picks it up, it there's kind of an Easter egg in here because on the package, the Wish Willow is made by Tabby Cat Curiosity, and it's an acronym for "That's a Bad Idea," which is Curry Barker's YouTube comedy series and production company with Cooper Tomlinson, who also plays Ian in this movie.
Mhm.
So I thought that was kind of a cool Easter egg just to throw in there. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
I
and
thought
it's
it was kind of
also
cool.
cat, which cat again, cats are like a running theme throughout this entire movie. Yeah, I think it's awesome. And it's crazy because when Bear finds the One Wish Willow in the store, after initially looking at the crystals, and he's like, oh, the sunshine crystal, she wouldn't like that. He finds the One Wish Willow, and it's conveniently located directly between a voodoo doll and the Egyptian magic eye, specifically the Egyptian Eye of Ra. So the Eye of Ra is associated with the right eye, representing wrath, destruction, fiery power, and protection. Also, the Eye of Ra, according to Egyptian mythology, was used as a weapon by Ra to punish those who rebelled or threatened cosmic order. Coincidence? I don't think so.
Super
Also,
crazy.
you can make note of the fact that the Eye of Ra is the right eye on the right side. As for the voodoo doll, the One Wish Willow acts as a sort of voodoo doll in a way for this movie in what it does to Nikki. It kind of turns her into a voodoo doll of sorts for Bear. So the irony is definitely not lost on this one. And it was also reported that the use of the Eye of Ra in this movie was because Indy Navarrete already had tattoos of both the Eye of Horus and the Eye of Ra on her wrists, so it fit perfectly within the themes and the narrative of this movie. So that's why it's in here. And there's also apparently an Eye of Ra on the bottom of the One Wish Willow box, which is pretty cool.
It was cool. And another thing on the box, when this movie came out, you could actually I don't know if you could call it, but the people that texted it, Nikki would respond and then would like blow up your phone in text messages. And
Yeah.
then if you stop, like would never respond back, she would be like, "Why aren't you responding?" And then it would stop for a while. And then the next day it would keep blowing up your phone. That's
Yeah.
just crazy. It's creepy in a way. I don't know if you would, if that's like an algorithm or something you could program to
It's
do.
just yeah, they literally just programmed it. So it's like a messaging system that they built. And they did this actually with billboards too. They got billboards in LA and they started off like with just a plain red billboard and it was like, do you want to go out with me or something like that? XO Nikki. And then it was like then they did it again the following week and it was like a little bit more distressed looking the board and it was like why didn't you answer me? And then the next week the board was like scribbled all over with marker and it was like had creepy shit all over it. So like progressively getting more intense. And it had the number on there. And they said people were getting actual voice memos, not just text message responses. They were getting voice memos of Nikki. And they said it started off really sweet, like it does in the movie. And then they got progressively more and more menacing as as they received more messages, which is so fucking cool. I think that's the most genius marketing. Make it interactive. Like, big blockbusters sell themselves but small movies like this, independent movies that don't have a ton of money or a lot of knowledge about them, the best way to get the word out is to make something interactive. Some sort of guerrilla marketing works so well for these movies.
And this is a Blumhouse movie. And one thing I'll say about that is Blumhouse Studios in general does really good on marketing for their films. Like
Hmm.
that's one thing I've always been impressed with. So moving right along in this scene here, then we get to this bar scene, right? And this is where, they show up for trivia. Nikki, she seems really cool. She seems like a cool chick. Like she's like really good friends with everyone. They have this group of four. She's sitting next to Ian, hint hint. And then you have Bear that's sitting next to Sarah. And then Nikki decides like, hey, I'll go get us some shots. And of course, Bear in the friend zone goes and follows after. I was like, I'll go with you. And as like he's like trying to tell her about his cat that died, she just keeps talking. But then Sarah walks up. And this is kind of a big moment here because Sarah actually takes a moment to listen to what Bear has to say and is really feeling bad for Bear and knows he's grieving over Sandy's death and throws her arms around him and seems like she really cares. And then in this scene, as Sarah had ran up, Nikki goes back to Ian and like leaves the two there with Sarah and Bear for a second while she goes back to play trivia and give shots to Ian. And you can kind of notice too that the jacket she's wearing seems very familiar to another person that's there that's not Bear, Sarah, or Nikki. So it's just interesting. I kind of feel like here the signs were kind of in front of Bear all along that this was the person for him, or in that he just wasn't like waking up to it and he didn't really want to, I guess, see what was really right for him and just wanted what he wanted. And so you can kind of see a foreshadowing of this here. Did you see a foreshadowing of this in the
Yeah,
scene?
I mean, well, if you go back a little bit, you could see Bear and Ian before they go get the drinks. They're looking at each other, and Bear's like making faces at Ian, like get her out of here, and Ian's like no, 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 like because he doesn't want him to fuck up trivia night. So, uh, and then like Nikki's like, oh, I'm gonna go get some drinks, and then Bear's like, I'll go with you, and that's when they go up to the bar, and of course we see that it's called Barker's Pub, which is named after Curry Barker, the director. But that's a fun little Easter. That's a pretty obvious Easter egg, but it's a fun one. So then they're there, and like yeah, in that scene, what you're saying is that she's wearing that oversized jean jacket. Well, in the very first scene in the movie, when we see Ian for the first time, he's wearing a not a jacket, but it is a jean shirt. It's like a blue jean shirt that he's wearing. So I think that is very intentional. And there's something I'll bring up later when we get further on about the use of clothing to kind of associate characters with one another. So I think that that is clear that this is like a little bit of a breadcrumb. And then, beyond that, it's weird because Bear has the chance to tell her about his cat, but he chooses not to. He doesn't want to. It doesn't seem like he feels comfortable opening up to Nikki, and it's clear right there in that moment that like he doesn't feel comfortable opening up to her. And it's very interesting because like he loves her so much, he claims. So then why is he afraid to like tell her what actually happened? Because he's like, oh, I was just at home working on stuff all day. And she's like, you were just sitting on the couch watching TV, weren't you? And he's like, yeah, pretty much. I'm like, dude, fucking tell her about your cat. It's just the start of a greater problem in this movie where Bear just constantly makes bad decisions. And this is the very start of it. And like, they have their conversation and like he's Bear's trying his best to try and tell her how he feels. And he goes to tell her and then boom, he gets interrupted by the bartender. Then he tries it again. He gets interrupted a second time by the bartender. And this is the theme of timing, like bad timing, bartender interrupting. Then all of a sudden, Ian comes running up. He interrupts the conversation, and Ian's reason for doing it is obvious. He's like, don't fuck up my trivia night. Like, I told you not to do it here. And then Sarah's like, well, I didn't know we were all convening at the bar now. So they all come over and they just interrupt. And in this scene, it's really interesting because as they're walking away from the bar, finally, after Bear just very easily tells Sarah that his cat died, he's just like, Sandy died. When she's like, what's wrong? And he immediately tells her because he feels more comfortable opening up to her because maybe he feels less threatened by her. That right there is a breadcrumb of like the relationship between him and Sarah as well. It's different than what he feels for Nikki. And like, so then they go walk back to their table. And as they're walking back to the table, you see Nikki scamper off with Ian and she's like playfully removing his hat and putting it on her own head and walking off. You're like, okay, something's up there. That was like a little, I know they're all friends, but that was a flirtatious move that girls usually do. So yeah, I think there's a lot of little foreshadowing about their relationship here. And it's very brilliant. I will say that the way that this is written is so everything about this movie. That's why so many people analyze the shit out of it because you can, because like, it seems like he legitimately thought of everything, even if he didn't. It just appears that way because the writing and directing was so good. Yeah.
And what's interesting too, I was kind of annoyed this got left out, but there was a scene that was actually cut, which I think would have made an even more emotional impact on Bear's kind of obsession here. And I guess I would say being oblivious or almost, you can't say it's negligence, but like what he should have had was in front of his face the whole time versus what he sought after. And there was a bar scene that was originally featured a scene where Nikki runs into her ex at the bar that they were at, which is at Barker's Pub. And instead of staying at that bar, they originally had it where, like right after this scene, remember when Nikki says she wants to go home? Well, originally they did decide to go from bar to bar, and she had ran into her ex and decides to go bar to bar with that ex as all of them follow. And she's like dancing with her ex, and the ex keeps buying the group shots. And it was actually cut because they needed to cut down on timing. And also, they felt like somehow it just didn't really mesh with the rest of the film. But in a way, if you think about it, if they kept that in there, that would pound in so much more about how Bear is this obsessed with someone that really isn't interested in all him at this moment, it seems. I wonder if it was cut maybe in a way because it kind of ruined the whole reveal, maybe, with Ian's and possible intentions. But I think it would have added to the story by really just showing how deep the obsession was. Like, what an actual creep. Like, any normal person would have been like, okay, I'm going home. Like, have a fun night. But no, he like, follows them around bar to bar.
So was it, like, in the original scene, was it going to be just Nikki, Bear, and her ex, or was it all of them?
It was all of them.
Okay, so that's different.
Yeah.
That because like it would be creepy if it was just the three of them, like Nikki, Bear, and her ex. That would be creepy. But if it's all of them, it's like, yeah, of course he's gonna stay because his friends are still there. I don't know if I don't know. I don't know if that would have worked though. I feel like it would have changed how you perceive Nikki's character. Like, because I think Nikki already you have this perception. They build her up in your brain in this movie before you even know the character, just based on how Bear it starts with Bear like blowing out his load of love all over this strange
Oh my
waitress, just
God.
telling her how he feels. And like I feel like right away it builds it up in your own mind that Nikki must be some incredible, amazing girl if like he's expressing this type of love. And then you meet her and you're like, oh, she's really cool. She's funny. She's fun. She's obviously attractive. Like, yeah, Nikki's as great as they made it seem. But then if they would have shown her being messy, like with her ex and dancing around at the bar and stuff like that, it might have changed your perception of the character. And then you would have been like, well, I don't know why he's like so in love with her. She's still hooked up on her ex, blah, 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 all that shit. And I get like it would have maybe hardened Bear's feelings of jealousy and obsession, as we keep saying over and over again, that like maybe it would have helped with that, but I also feel like it would have slowed the movie down and it would have also taken you out of like the main friend group. And I think that's what really kept this movie centered was just it was really just focused on the main crew. Yeah, there were like a couple other people in it, but it was mainly focused on the main crew. And if you introduce like an ex-boyfriend, that's another storyline you kind of have to flesh out in the writing as well, like what happened between them, why'd they separate. And I feel like it would have slowed the pacing of the movie down. And I also feel like it would be repetitive. Like this movie does enough to let you know that Bear is absolutely infatuated with Nikki, that like a scene like that wouldn't be necessary. That's my perspective on it.
For sure. I think ultimately you kind of had to cut it, especially for timing.
Oh yeah.
And it probably didn't mesh very well.
It would have
But it
slowed
is,
everything.
yeah. I could totally see someone though. Like, imagine if it was the three of them. Like, he
That would
would
have been a
follow
different
them
story.
around. He's
That
like,
would have been a
"Ooh,
different
yeah,
story.
let me try to work in the middle there."
Dude, like if it was I so like it's funny because I think if it's the whole friend group it wouldn't have worked, but I think if it was the three of them, well that's a whole different story. That might have amped up the creep factor for Bear, but I think also it would have ruined Bear's character because you don't know
Yeah,
in the beginning that Bear is kind of like
a
a little
creep.
fucked up.
Yeah.
You know that he's kind of going through shit and you kind of feel bad for him. Like
Hmm.
in the beginning you kind of like sympathize with the guy. But I think if they would have done that, where it was the three of them and he's just creepy third wheeling with like her and her ex, that would have been you'd be like, all right, fuck Bear. Like right from the beginning, you wouldn't be as invested as like the movie made you. So I think it was the right call not to
For
do that.
sure. Yeah, I agree too. So then we have the scene where Bear winds up taking Nikki home. And as he's driving Nikki home, she asked him this question that, if Sarah were to have feelings for him, how would he feel about that? And of course, she words it like, I'm asking you how you would feel about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she kind of acts like she's like drunk. You kind of wonder if she's drunk a little bit or not. But it's already foreshadowed here about Sarah and Bear. But then, of course, Bear says, I see her just as a friend. Do you think Bear ever really had feelings for Sarah in the beginning? Or do you think those developed over time? And maybe he just ignored them?
Yeah, I think that's a possibility. I think that I think the interesting part about their relationship is like Bear is interested in what he couldn't have and instead of like what he could have. I think maybe he might have known about Sarah because we kind of find out later it's pretty obvious that like I think he knew. And so I don't know that I think he might have like deep down had those feelings there, but his like creepy infatuation with Nikki that he wanted something he couldn't have, and that's like it's kind of a trait of men, to be honest. Is like we want things, we always want something greater than ourselves, like something maybe that we can't have, but we want it anyway, and we'll try for it no matter what. And I feel like that's a trait, a fatal flaw of a character in this story of Bear is like he wants something he couldn't have, and that's more enticing to him than the one that he could have. And I think it's also him kind of chasing a fantasy. He has an idea of Nikki in his mind that may not be reality, but he has it built up so much in his head that he wants that fantasy more than what the reality is giving him. And so I think that there is a possibility that he had feelings in there for her. I think they hint at things. I think the fact that he just opens up about Sandy right away to her shows that there's something deeper there. He feels more comfortable with Sarah. And I don't know if that's because he doesn't feel threatened by her like he feels threatened by Nikki, not like physically threatened, but like she and Nikki intimidates him because he's like crazy about her and she's someone he can't have, but he could have Sarah if he wanted, so he's like comfortable opening up to her. And I think that is more about what's going on at this stage. And I think that kind of changes later as you'll see, but yeah, I think there was something there maybe from the beginning.
Yeah, it makes me wonder too. And then you have this moment too where, Nikki says, when I have a crush on a guy, no one knows. Do you think Nikki was trying to help Sarah by finding out if Bear has feelings for her, or was she doing it for her own intentions?
Okay, so I have a lot to say on this. So because this is a really the whole scene of them when they're in the car and Bear is driving Nikki back. There is so much in here that sets up the rest of the story, but also is such a deep like character driven moment where you can take a deep dive on these characters and get inside their minds and get their full psyche. So like when Nikki is talking to Bear about her book that she's writing, she says to Bear, you're the only one I can talk to about these things, especially at work. You're not a complete brick wall. And then she looks at him with like this kind of loving stare, like longing almost. It's different than how you would think someone would look at someone that was a friend. It was more like adoration, which to me kind of alludes to the fact that I think she might have actually had feelings for Bear. And like Nikki says, if I like a guy, no one will ever know, like you said. And then she kind of, again, looks at Bear a little sheepishly and then moves her eyes down. And then she gets out of the car. So I think that's a pretty strong hint that she did actually like him. I think that it's funny because like Bear takes fucking the advice from his asshole friend Ian and decides to call her Freaky Nikki as she gets out of the car and she's walking away, which she obviously doesn't like. And then she storms back to the door and she's like, Bear, do you like me? Because if you do, now is the time to tell me. Again, like we're dealing with that time theme, now is the time. And of course, as Bear does throughout the entire movie, makes a really shitty choice and says, I like you as a friend. I think we're really good friends. To which Nikki's like, taken aback for a second from that. And I think maybe she was expecting him to say yes. And she's just like, okay, yeah, good night, whatever. And then just walks away. And it's funny because like Ian's advice to call her Freaky Nikki almost worked for a second. I feel like that she came back and then she's like, do you like me? Because like that was a playful jab of like someone would say. So I think she was really expecting Bear to say yes. And if he did, I believe there was a possibility they could have been together for real. I do. I feel like Nikki was doing a little bit more than just asking about Sarah because like she says, well, how do you feel about her? He says she likes him. She's just a friend and all that stuff. And then Nikki's reaction is like, oh, she makes it so obvious. And she starts laughing and Bear's like, yeah, I know it's too obvious. To me, it kind of comes across like a check to see if Bear likes her. Like I can know if you like her or if you like me kind of deal. But it could also simply be that Nikki is like genuinely trying to help out Sarah. But by the way that like Nikki reacts to Bear's answer, the way that she responds in that, oh, she makes it so obvious, makes me think that she was fishing for her own benefit. It was more than just, I'm trying to help out a friend. I think she was genuinely fishing to see if he would tell her. And that was his chance, man. He had that opportunity and he fucking blew it.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought too, because don't get me wrong, Nikki is more there's no hero here, but she's like the good guy, really. But at the same time, it kind of brings in the theming of sabotage because
Yeah.
we already know what one friend kind of is like
Kind of, yeah.
doing, and you don't even know if it's really intentional, but it
Right.
makes you wonder. But then this kind of also brings up the same thing. Like, is it intentional sabotage or is it like not kind of thing? I think it goes more into that localization though, where people can be shitty. Like, unless you really truly trust your friends, which is the way it should be, like, your friend should always have your back, even if it's the hottest girl on the fucking planet. your friend should always choose you over the hottest girl on the planet. Like even if that girl didn't like you and you knew that would hurt your feelings, your friend still wouldn't go like fucking hook up with that girl.
If
Like,
they're true friends, you're right,
yeah.
100%.
And I think it's localizing that theming of some people are just really shitty. But however, at the same time, Nikki to us in this story seems like a really good person. But she does bring up this moment where she was talking about she's quitting because she wants to focus on writing and writing this book. What did you think about this conversation in the car about her love story book she was writing and how she was quitting the job? Did you catch the subtext of that conversation that was going on there,
Yeah.
Kurt?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and this is how you know like I'm a film obsessive because I just love good writing, and this is one of those scenes where it's so small and it's very subtle, but it literally tells you everything about the story and tells you everything there is to know about Bear's character in this moment. So they're having this conversation and Bear says like it's going to be super weird not seeing you at work anymore. And Nikki says, "Yeah, but I'm just not happy there." Bear then says, "I mean, it's just a job, right? It's a small like that's a really small line, but it's an insight into Bear's thinking." He's saying like, "I don't care if you're not happy there. I want you there for my own selfish reasons. Fuck your feelings." Like, which is another really interesting piece of foreshadowing that we get for the rest of the story, and obviously the way that the One Wish Willow works. So it's also really interesting when she says that she wants to feel love to be able to write love. And Bear says, "Oh, so it's a romance, like because no one knows what Nikki's book's about. She hasn't told anyone yet." And Nikki replies, "No, it's a love story. There's a difference." And Bear says back, "What's the difference?" And that again, right there, is telling you everything you need to know. Bear does not know the difference between true love and romance or infatuation. So I think this scene offers truly the best look at Bear's internal thought process for the rest of the movie and what he does in the story. It's fucking genius writing. And it really sets up the rest of the movie perfectly. And it gives you an idea of like how selfish Bear is and how he doesn't really understand the difference between lustful romance and true love.
For sure. Yeah, I agree entirely. And then you have this moment. So, of course, Bear being the asshole he is, but I don't know if you could say he had malicious intentions at the very beginning. But of course, she's walking away. He pulls the One Wish Willow out of the box. It plays the toy sound, and he says, "I wish Nikki loved me more than anyone in the fucking world," and snaps and breaks. And instantly, you already get the vibe from the film that something's changed. And she comes back out and she starts like kind of asking him to come inside because her cat died. And he's like, "Wait, your cat died?" Like she's like, "Oh, I mean your cat. I mean your cat. Let's go have some drinks to
Yeah.
so you can uh, take your mind off your cat." But then there's a moment here where we have this big moment where she snaps back in for what seems like the real Nikki for the second. She's like, "What the fuck? What the fuck?" And there's a theory that this happened the first time because there's a car mirror right where she was, looking in through the window on the passenger side of the car. Do you think she snapped back into herself because she saw the reflection of herself, which would cause the real Nikki to surface over Wish Nikki?
Yeah. Before I give my answer on that, the one thing that really stands out in the scene as well is the use of the shadows, because that's really important for the rest of the movie too. Is that when you see Nikki before she gets into the house and before he makes the wish, she's lit up. You see her face, everything is well lit. She When he snaps it and she comes back out and they show her on the porch, she's covered in shadow. And that's a reoccurring theme, is that like that's a different version. It's the new Nikki, the dark Nikki coming out. She's covered in shadows. So in that moment, like you're saying, when she's by the window, she's like, "Oh, I did just lose my cat." And he's like, "What? What the fuck are you talking about?" And so she's acting really weird, and she does look in the mirror, and this is where I'm like, I don't know. I think it's pretty accurate. I feel like that is probably what happens, where she sees her face, and it's like they say mirrors show you your true self. And so there's a lot of mirrors in this movie. Like even we can go back to the scene when he first walked into the shop and he's talking to the shopkeep at the like in the store when he's trying to go buy the necklace, and when he goes to the counter with the one wish willow, he's looking at the shopkeeper, but in the mirror on the right, that's right next to where the shopkeeper is standing behind the register. Bear's got the reflection of himself looking back, right into the mirror, and they mirrors a reflection of your true self. And so like it's all a part of this. So I think they're setting that up early in the movie, and then she sees herself in the reflection, snaps out. It does make sense, but there is one thing that I have that pokes a hole in it slightly, and I guess I could save that for when we get to that scene. But I think that there's one scene that makes me question it, but I think overall it's a pretty sound theory. It makes sense to me.
Can't wait to hear it. And
Yeah.
and that's the genius of this writing is there's nothing that's definitively answered on a lot
Hmm.
of theories and stuff, but it doesn't mean they're necessarily incorrect either,
Yeah.
which
Yeah. It's like I think that's the genius of it is that I think it's complete. It's not like you have any. It's not like you necessarily have a lot of questions when the movie ended, per se, about like there being plot holes in the movie. I think it was really well rounded, everything connected. But there's so much interest in this movie, and I think that a lot of the things have deeper symbolism than probably what Curry Barker even intended. That you can go on and on about figuring things out and thinking this happened, different theories. So that's what's so brilliant about the movie.
for sure. And then we have this next scene where, of course, Bear gets what he wants, and Nikki stays over at his place. This is where the magic of the One Wish Willow happens.
Yeah, baby.
So at this point, uh, Nikki stays over, and she's on the bed with Bear, and she's kissing him. And one little note here, this is a fan theory, but it actually got brought up by Curry Barker that it was a prop, but it does lead into theming. The bedside clock, later in the movie, the time changes to military time. And Curry Barker said in an interview that this was actually a prop mistake that was there. But fans have really dug into this and said that this also leans into the theming of time. Like there's not enough time and it could actually be messing with time, the One Wish Willow. So I just thought it was interesting that they've gone this far with it. Nikki snaps back again in the middle of kissing Bear. There is a thought there too that there is actually a mirror on like the dresser or the nightstand, whatever's in the room. But then at this moment too, you have Bear that was like, "Oh, I didn't want to make you do something you didn't want to do." And then that's when Nikki snaps back into Wish Nikki, right? So the question here is, do you think Bear actually cares about what Nikki wants? Even though we've seen constant symbolism, constant foreshadowing that he really only cares about himself and what he wants.
Before I jump into that, I just want to point something out that's pretty funny in the scene, and I think some people might have noticed this as well. Maybe you did too. When they first walk into the house, and Nikki's like looking around. First of all, she's like breathing in the smell, and she's like, and she makes this weird noise, like it's creepy infatuation. But when they first walk in, Bear immediately turns to his desk and like grabs magazines or something and rips them off the desk and quickly throws them in the trash. Were they fucking Gooner mags? Because they were sitting there next to like a bottle of
No,
lotion next to
that's
his computer desk.
dude, that's fucked up. I have no idea.
Yeah. As soon as they
That
walk in,
is
he just
so
grabs
fucked
these
up.
magazines. You see him quickly throw them in the trash. You're like, what the fuck were those? I think that's again another scene. He's a lonely jerker, is what he is.
Dude, that's so fucked up.
So I think at this point, this early in the movie, he's like showing he's respectful of her. Then he gets in the bed anyway, and then she's like cuddling up with him, and then uh they're talking, and then she starts making out with him, and like they start kissing ferociously. This is the part where I say there's a hole, because her eyes are closed when they're making out. And then she suddenly pops her eyes open, what the fuck, and jumps off of him. So what
Oh, that's
mirror
a
was
good
she looking
point.
at? And also the mirror is behind her. The mirror is not, she's facing the wall, the headboard. There's no mirror over there. And her eyes are closed when she's making out with him. So this is the one scene where I was like, that's the hole I could poke in it, because
Yeah.
I think it fits in most of the other areas, but in this scene, she's facing the wall and she's got her eyes closed on top of Bear. So unless she somehow saw her reflection in his eyeballs, which I don't think she did because her eyes were fucking closed, then in this, that's like the one area where I think they made a mistake. But to answer the question about like, do you think he genuinely cared? I do. So like him, Nikki's apologizing to him when she like after she freaks out, and he's like, "You kiss me immediately," and she says, "I know, I'm so sorry," and he's like, "What the fuck was that? Like, you kissed me. Why'd you freak out?" He has genuine shock, genuine fear on his face, and I think he's also like really fearing it not being consensual, because she probably knew that he knew that she was like drunk and all that, so maybe he thought she was just drunk and like didn't realize what she was doing. So maybe he thought that's what it was, but he kept apologizing. She kept apologizing, saying like, "No, it's okay. I'm sorry. Can we just sleep?" And Bear's rightfully freaked out. And then Bear says something really interesting here, though. He says, "It's okay. I just thought I was doing something you didn't like." And she says, "No, no, no. I just saw something that freaked me out. I had a panic attack." So the theme of like consensual relations is pretty obvious here. But I do think that Bear like genuinely cared about not violating her consent, which is ironic because Bear doesn't know at this point that his wish even worked. I think he thinks that she's drunk or something, or on drugs, or like maybe beginning to have inklings of that his wish maybe did something, but he doesn't know for sure that his wish worked at this point in the movie. So, but I think what's like really more interesting about the scene, more ironic, is what Bear said. I thought I was doing something you didn't like. And like Bear's the one who made the wish in the first place, which fundamentally makes Nikki do a lot of things she doesn't want to do because he basically controls her through the wish. So I think that this scene is very interesting as well. Every scene like between the two of them is just fucking awesome. The writing is just forget it. And I just think it's super weird how he first of all he turns around in the beginning when she's taking her shirt off, and then his genuine panic when she's like, "What the fuck?" when she freaks out and jumps off of him. He feels like he did something to violate her because in this moment he doesn't realize that the wish actually did work. And so I think it's genuine. I think he does care, and I don't think he was intentionally trying to put her in a situation where she didn't want to do it because he was very careful about sitting next to her as well. Like he sat over the sheets. He didn't even take his clothes off. He sat in his clothes above the comforter, above the sheets, and she leaned into him, and he was just sitting there all stiff. And either that was like fear because he's like, I don't even know what to do with myself. She's so hot, or if he was like trying to be respectful, or a little bit of both. But I think in this moment, he doesn't know that the wish worked, so he's kind of like genuine. I don't want to make you do something you don't want to do, but unknowingly, he already has done that with the wish. So I think it's such a cool fucking scene. And then also poke a hole in that theory about Nikki seeing her face with the eyeballs because her
Yeah,
eyes
that's a
are
great
closed.
point. You know, he was probably thinking the whole time, I can't believe this is happening right now. I
Yeah.
can't
Oh,
believe this is happening.
oh,
The
dude, you know
hottest
it.
girl in the school.
Yeah, you see it all over his. It's written all over his face. Like you know that that's exactly what he's thinking. But at the same time, I think he's also like he's just so awkward. Like he doesn't know what to do because he's
Yeah.
like, it's literally like your favorite Joker line. Like you're like a dog chasing what is it? Chasing
I'm like a dog chasing cars. I wouldn't know what to do if I caught it.
exactly. And he literally is. He's a dog chasing Nikki and doesn't know what to do now that he caught her. And like I think in that scene, it's perfect. And but I do think still it's early, so he doesn't know if the wish works. So I do think he's like kind of caring about her a little bit.
So then we have this next scene where they wake up the next morning and Bear walks into the kitchen and Sandy's body is on this ritual altar and Nikki's clearly put her there. You can tell on Bear's face, he's just like, what the fuck? Why would you do that? Like, why would you do that? Like, I think he actually says that's fucked up.
He does.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
like it's actually fucked up. So the question is this thing, whether it's the wish, I know Curry Barker's made it pretty clear this isn't a possession movie. Entity, wish, whatever it is that's controlling Nikki, making it wish Nikki, is wish Nikki using this as a symbol of devotion to Bear, almost like something showing dominance, like, hey, like I put the body of this thing on this ritual for you and like here's a gift kind of thing. What did you make of this, or is this just to like make this more scary of a horror film?
Yeah, I think a fun note on this scene too is like when Bear initially comes out and he sees that he has breakfast made and he's kind of like slowly, cautiously creaking through the house because he doesn't want to I guess he doesn't want to wake Nikki, or like he thinks she's asleep still. I don't know. But if you look in the background, as soon as he gets into the kitchen, you see Nikki like scurry real quick in the background into the other room. So as much as, and then like when he gets into the kitchen, then Nikki comes around. She's like, "Oh no, I wanted to surprise you," as if she wasn't there the whole fucking time following him. So like she was just lurking in the background, waiting for him to come out. It's very creepy and very stalkerish, but like it fits with what we know about the character now later on. So like when he finally sees the altar, I think it serves several purposes. I think one, yeah, it's trying to be creepy and totally make you feel uncomfortable, which it succeeds. And two, I looked at it like wish Nikki doing things that she thought Bear would appreciate in an attempt to get him to love her like she loves him. Like wish Nikki's mind is warped and it could very well be some sort of demonic possession. So you kind of have to understand that wish Nikki doesn't think like a regular person. So I think to her, it was maybe a way for her to show Bear that she cared and that she feels sympathy for Bear by honoring his beloved pet with like a creepy ass altar. So I don't think she saw it as abnormal because whatever it is that's possessing Nikki is clearly not familiar with what's considered normal to humans. And so like that's my second thought. My third thought is that this scene sort of resembled what cats do when they kill something outside in the yard. If you ever had an outdoor cat, then you know like they go out and they kill things outside and they leave their bodies or their parts of their bodies on your stoop as a gift of sorts to show you that they're protecting you and that they care about you. And like as we see more of Wish Nikki in this movie, she acts more and more like a cat. And I think this is like some sort of gift from Wish Nikki to Bear in her fucked up state of mind. And I think Wish Nikki just kind of acts like whatever she thinks Bear loves most to get him to love her the same way that she loves him. And I think that she uses the cat in the scene as a way to try and win his love even further. But like her mind is so warped into whatever she is that she doesn't see it as anything abnormal.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. I see it as basically what you're saying too. It's almost like a symbol of. I see it as almost dominating something that maybe she even saw as like a threat that was in there, but also a symbol of devotion. Like, you love this cat so much. Let me show you it's right here. Like, also, I'm right here for you. Anytime you need something, I'm right here for you. Now we're going into this next
Weird.
scene where after they've gone to work the next day, Bear tries to tell Nikki as she's walking out. She goes to grab her purse out of his car, and he tells her he can't drive her home. And she's like, "Yeah, that's okay." And she goes and gets in Ian's car. Very suspicious to me. Bear's on the phone with Ian. You hear this big knock at the door, and Ian was saying that she was on drugs and all this stuff, and she was out of her mind. So let's stop there for a minute before she gets there and talk about this for a moment. Why do you think Nikki chose to get a ride home with Ian instead of Bear? What was the purpose of that? And piggybacking off of that, did Ian tell Bear to give Nikki space? Because he tells him to give Nikki space during this conversation because he was going behind Bear's back, or was he actually looking out for him as his friend? It's just suspicious that she wanted to get in the car with Ian.
Yeah. I mean, well, so after work, when she goes, she's like, "Yeah, I'm just." Bear's like, "Oh, I don't think I can give you a ride today," like, because she's trying to listen to Bear's advice to give her space, and she's like, "I know, I'm just grabbing my purse," and then she just casually walks around, hops in the car with Ian, and Ian's like, what the fuck? And he's like, "I guess I'm taking her home," and I think she did that because she's trying to not alert the others to the fact that she's changed, and like maybe to not scare or freak Bear out anymore because of like her behavior last night, and like she doesn't want to push him away and scare him to the point where he just runs from her. Like she wants him to love her. So I think it's more like she doesn't want to get found out by the others, so she's kind of trying to keep her behavior a little bit of a secret in some way to try and keep the status quo of the group, and also to entice Bear. Like maybe she knows that Bear was a little bit jealous of Ian and like wish Nikki's using that to try and make Bear chase her. I think that's something that it could be a possibility because I think the Wish Nikki does weird things with emotions. So I think that's kind of where I'm thinking with that. And then like as for the other question about giving him space, do I think Ian was like trying to go behind his back and like fuck Nikki or something? Uh no, I think he was genuinely looking out for Bear here, but not out of concern for Bear. I think it was out of concern for Nikki. I think Ian thinks that
Oh, that's a
Bear
good
is
point.
somehow, yeah. I think Ian thinks that Bear is somehow taking advantage of Nikki after Bear told Ian that Nikki is going through some stuff. Like his Bear told him, like, I think she's going through shit when they were at the store, and like, Nikki's in the background just staring at him as they're having their conversation. And like I think like when he told her, yeah, she's just like going through some weird shit. And so I think in Ian's mind, he's helping Bear, but I think more so he's looking out for Nikki. And I think like it's just one of those situations where it kind of helps both of them. And I think he was more so trying to get Nikki away from Bear because I think Ian doesn't trust Bear fully. And I think that's why he does some of the things that he does because Bear's kind of strange. And I think in this scene, it kind of proves that maybe Ian doesn't fully trust Bear because, like, why? And I also think it's interesting how he immediately takes kind of his thinking in the side of Nikki over Bear because I think that that also goes to show more about like who that Ian actually does maybe care about Nikki a little bit more than a friend. So that would be my take on those.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. What you made me think of is this is like the most fucked up friend group. Like
It is,
everyone's
yeah.
like no one can be honest with each other. If you're Ian too, and you think from that perspective, one, you would confront the guy. Like anyone that's fucking normal would confront the guy, especially if it's a fucking friend. But even if it's a stranger doing that from the perspective of protect Nikki, but also like the first thing would be if it's your friend, why wouldn't you just come out and be like, dude, like what the fuck
Well,
is
well, I
up?
think he doesn't know. Like and look, I understand, but like I think he doesn't. It's a situation where like he doesn't know all the facts of what's going on, and like Bear has only told him so much about one side of the story, and like Ian sees them coming in together, and they clock in together, and like Nikki's just fucking staring at them in the store. So I think that like there's weird vibes going on here for sure, and Ian is sensing that. But I also think he doesn't have the full story. So like, what is he going to confront him about? He doesn't have like Bear didn't do anything technically wrong at this point, at least as we would see it. He didn't do anything wrong. So I don't think Ian has a lot to go off of. Like, what would he confront him about? Like he could suspect it in his mind, but he doesn't know the whole story. Let's say he confronts Bear, and Bear's like, "What the fuck, dude? Like, I didn't do anything to her. She's the one who's going through shit. I didn't do anything." And then he like loses a friend because he confronted him wrongly, saying, and then it's like, then it tells you as Bear, as his friend, like, dude, you don't trust me at all. That's fucked up. So like, if he just confronted him with no actual evidence, you're going to run into some problems, especially when it's friends. It actually makes it more complicated than like if it was a stranger. If it was a stranger, he'd probably be like, dude, what are you doing? But like as a friend, you don't want to lose that friend. So I think it gets more complicated when it's in the friend group.
For sure. It makes me think of that Shutter Island quote with Leonardo DiCaprio or whatever movie that is, where he's like, "What the fuck is going on here, huh? What the fuck is going on here?"
I like how you think
Oh
of
my
that movie. I'm
god.
like that could literally be in any movie USA.
Yeah.
But I think that is in Shutter Island because he's like confused about everything. That movie's fucking nuts.
Dude, that movie is fucking
Yeah.
amazing too. So then at this point though, he answers the door and it's Nikki and she's in this like really nice red dress.
She was
It's
just
like
telling a story about when. So she asked him if he had or like he had feelings for her, and then he
mhm,
said, "When did you have feelings? Like when did these feelings start developing? Like for me." Bear asks her, and that's when she says somewhere around Christmas and
around
onward from
Christmas.
there.
Since these feelings were growing with Nikki, do you
She
believe
claims.
those feelings and emotions were real inside actual real Nikki? Or do you think this is, Wish Nikki, Freaky Nikki, I guess we can call her, is tapping into the emotions that were already there and just letting them out? Or is this something that actually was starting, where it kind of leads into your point, like you were saying, that maybe she actually did like him? What's your thoughts on her saying this here?
Yeah, this was a really fascinating scene because so Bear like we said, Bear asks Nikki like when did these feelings start happening for you, because he's confused too. I think he's like, what? Everyone like I never got any vibe from you that you were interested in me, but I don't. So he's like, I want to know what the fuck, like where how'd this happen? And she's like, it just kind of happened over time. She said it started to feel this way over Christmas, and then it just started to build from there. And she said, and then last night I kind of saw what we could be. And then she says, do you have feelings for me or not? And he's like, yeah, like I do. And so it's really interesting because I think there's some truth to this. I think that what she's saying has some grounding in the way that the real Nikki felt over Christmas and over time. Her feelings had grown for Bear, I think, for real. And I think maybe she was either had them buried deep down, or like maybe she wasn't sure if they were real feelings or friend feelings. I don't know. But then Nikki never really made a point to tell Bear this, and maybe because she was hooking up with Ian is why she didn't do it. I think that like the real Nikki, as we saw before, when she said that if she likes a guy, they're never going to know about it. I think that that line and then this tell you that maybe she did have feelings for Bear somewhere inside. And I think this Wish version of Nikki is kind of using like the actual feelings that were there and heightening them. And I think that could be what the Wish does, is maybe it like heightens or enhances what's already there within her. And something else about this scene that's crazy is when Nikki shows back up at Bear's house in that nice dress. When he opens the door, the shadow, of course, is like draped all over her face. And it always changes the way that she looks and makes her look less human in like a really, really weird, creepy ass way. And I think that again, like the shadow, follow the shadows. You know, some crazy dark shit's going on when the shadows hit Nikki's face. So Nikki claims that she was like on MDMA and apologizes to Bear for acting strange, and like she tries to explain away her odd behavior, that she was on drugs. She wouldn't have done anything that she did had she been sober, or her dad didn't fuck her up, is what she claims. And like she tells Bear she doesn't really remember anything and she only remembers some of it. And so like Nikki says she gets really manipulative here. It's very strange because I think this is really important for not only the question that you asked, but like the rest of the movie. That she gets very manipulative, and she says, "It's not like I thought you were taking advantage of me." And Bear's like, "Well, why would you? Why would you say that?" And she's like, "Because you're not. Like you wouldn't. That's what I'm saying. You're not taking advantage of me." It's really interesting because it basically opens, she's like openly accusing him of taking advantage of her, but at the same time she's not, playing with Bear's mind. And she's saying like he didn't, and he's saying that he didn't, that she was the one who kissed him first. She's suggesting that he didn't take advantage of her, and his defensive reaction really makes me wonder if he feels like he did, not because of the kissing, but because of his wish. And so it seems like Wish Nikki is either fucking with Bear's head, or she's trying to tell him that what he did is okay and like comfort him and make him feel safe to actually love her. Either way, it's really fucked up. But I think that like all that's to say is that I think that the feelings are real, but I think that the wish Nikki, the freaky Nikki, like takes those feelings and manipulates them and enhances them in a way that matches what he wished for. And I think it's really like creating this weird scenario where like, is he taking advantage of her? Is he not? Does she really love him? Does she not? It fucks with your head as an audience member as much as it's messing with Bear's head.
That's a good point. And this
Yeah.
kind of leads into, actually, speaking of that, that, they actually get together and everything's going well for a while. Remember, they're kissing at work, they're looking at pictures together, they're cooking breakfast in the kitchen, they're watching movies. But, like, for instance, even when they're watching the movie, at one of those final scenes, she kind of looks at him and has to get his attention. It almost seems as if Bear's getting bored a little bit with the relationship.
Yeah, he's
Um,
like
what do you think is happening here?
turns her head
Yeah.
away. uh, yeah, it's very, very, very fascinating. Again, this movie just keeps on dropping layers and layers. And in this is it. This is the scene when they're showing the footage of like them dating and they're all happy, where Nikki wears that pink outfit with the headband and the shirt from the waitress in the beginning. Just FYI. So next time you watch it, you can tune into that. But it's crazy because like after expressing their emotions and they finally hook up and whatever, we get the footage of their relationship and like they're super about each other. But what's really crazy is that we get shots, and it's like funny, but it also gives you more information. Is we get shots of both Ian and also Sarah's dad at the store looking at Bear and looking at Nikki like in total disgust and shock as they're like sucking face and in the full throes of love. And I think it's really interesting because it contrasts reality from this fantasy that Bear and Nikki are currently wrapped up in. Because Ian and everyone else, they're like, what the fuck is it? Like, what the hell is this? How did this even happen? It's not normal. Something weird is going on. But like, it's just interesting because you have like this super happy, they're sucking face, they're all about each other, but then it's contrasted with the reality, the real people around them that are like questioning, how the fuck did this happen? This is dark. But then they're all like, they're happy and everything. And like even the song in the background, it's upbeat and it sounds happy. But if you listen, it has this undertone that's like, "Ooh," it's like a dark, eerie undertone. It's a perfect reflection of what you're seeing on the screen and what's happening between Bear and Nikki. It's like it all starts like a fantasy. It's wonderful. And then things go south. And so like in the footage they're showing of them in their relationship, like it it starts to turn. And so over time, the footage and the scenes, then dating progresses to where like the relationship becomes more of a monotonous thing, where Bear doesn't look as enthused about the relationship as he did early on, which to me is a sign that his so-called love for her was more like lust and romance as like and more than true love. And like the movie told you this. It told you this was the case earlier, like when Nikki and him were talking about the book in the car, and Nikki said there's a difference between romance and love, and Bear's like, what's the difference? Well, they're showing you what the difference is in these scenes. And as they're like, because you start out hot and heavy, that's the lust, that's the romance, that's the passion. And then the reality sets in. It's like if you truly love someone, that'll last beyond the initial throes of excitement, but he's quickly getting bored of her and annoyed with her because they're all about each other. And so Bear starts looking like a man who's no longer romanticizing about his girl, and he kind of seems bored with the relationship. And it could also simply be that like his guilt is creeping up on him, and maybe that's why the relationship starts declining. Maybe the thought of the wish is creeping into his mind. But I think the relationship is so toxically codependent, and they're never away from each other in the early scenes of them dating. And I think Bear starts realizing it and gets tired of the codependency. And it's like the reality just not matching up with the fantasy that he concocted in his own head. And that's what I see from it. I'm just like, it's a perfect embodiment of what can happen when people think they're in love, but really they're just like they're in lust with each other. They're not actually in love with each other.
Right. Yeah, 100% true. It goes to show that he really never truly knew Nikki in a way. Like he just knew what he thought of Nikki and what he personally wanted. So That's a really good point.
It's a
Um,
fantasy.
and then we get into this major scene. So we have this date night scene. No, no, no. So,
Everyone's favorite.
oh, exactly. And in this scene, of course, it starts out though. So Nikki's asking Bear about what he wants to do. What's funny is she even mentions, I never really asked you what you wanted to do. It kind of almost insinuates in a way that the real Nikki never really cared for Bear,
Yeah,
like they
maybe.
really maybe weren't meant to be together. He tells her that he wanted to be a food critic, and of course, she criticizes him for putting like ketchup on his steak and stuff. And all, I even do that. But yeah, and then yeah, so she's like my little food critic, and Ian keeps calling on the phone, and he's declining it and putting it on do not disturb. And finally, he goes to answer this, and as he answers it, says, this is kind of a funny part. He's like, "What are you doing? Busy doing Nikki?"
Yeah.
Just like,
Uh,
dude,
it's great.
that was kind of fucked up, man.
Yeah.
Just stopping at this part here to discuss this first, like, is Ian saying that because do you think, like, in Ian's mind, he's pissed right now and feels like almost like Nikki has betrayed him in a way? Um, Knowing what we know, like,
I
what
don't
do
know,
you
man.
think about that?
I kind of feel like most of the things when Ian's poking at Bear now, he's poking, which, now it's funny. Think of don't poke the bear, poking the bear, like that kind of thing. Now
Yeah.
his name's Bear. Now I'm thinking about his name. But I feel like most of the things that Ian's insinuating in these scenes from here on out, especially when things start to get weird between him and Nikki, it's Ian poking things at Bear, like directing insults and potential backhanded things at Bear, like he's protective over Nikki. Still, Ian is, and I think he maybe doesn't think that Nikki's at fault. So like, I think it's directed straight at Bear here, even though, but I do think it's just him poking fun as well. Like that's what he's like. Oh, what are you busy doing? Doing Nikki? Like, because they've been literally attached to each other 24/7 for I don't know how long the timeline was in that scenario, but it must have been the span of a couple weeks or something. So I think that it's mostly that. It's like I don't even know you anymore. I don't see you anymore. You're busy banging your girlfriend every second. It's like, oh, are you busy right now? What are you doing? Busy doing Nikki? You're with Nikki again. So I think it's more of that than him being jealous, but I don't know. I mean, it could be a little bit of jealousy there, but he doesn't act like a jealous person. So I don't know that it's necessarily that.
And stepping back for just 1 second, right before you picked up the phone, Nikki said, "So what's the verdict on this bread?" Well, that's foreshadowing for what happens much later on, those words. Ian says that he did all this research and that Nikki's dad is fine, because that's another thing she had told him was her dad is dying, and everyone was of course so
Yeah, he had
surprised because they're
cancer.
like, you don't even have a relationship with your dad. Yeah, and he has cancer. And then Ian said he did the research and the hospital didn't even know who he was talking about. So then that kind of freaks Bear out for a minute. Ian tells Bear Sarah and Nikki were having a conversation, and Nikki sees Bear as just a friend. And that's when he kind of like goes back and stops and asks about her dad. And that's where we have that famous scene. No, 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 don't do that. And it makes you wonder. We got a couple of things here going on. One, knowing what Sarah and Nikki talked about. One, do you think Ian was making that up? Two, do you think Nikki really thought of Bear as just a friend? Did she really have feelings for him? Or was she just kind of like insinuating those things? It's a hard question to ask, knowing what we're told? Or is Ian just trying to sabotage the whole shit?
So I think that what it comes from it is like, no, I don't think Ian was making that up. I think that was probably a legitimate conversation. And I think Ian was trying to, in a way, look out for Bear, but also like probably warn him that he needs to stay away from Nikki or like get Nikki help because something's up with her. I don't think he was making that story up. And like I don't think that he would do that because like he's also looking out for Nikki as well. So like why would you make up a story and say that Nikki said this when then Nikki could find out about it later and then be pissed off at Ian? So like I don't think he'd want to put himself in that position where like why would you say that? Like I never said that. So I don't think that's the case. I think it was true. And I think he was trying to help in this scenario. As for like Nikki having feelings, I mean, we kind of went over this. I don't know. I mean, I think she did, but then when you hear these new things and these new stories come out, you're like, no, she didn't. So it's very confusing. This movie sort of confuses you, and it's not clear how Nikki felt, and I think that's intentional because Nikki straight up says, if I like someone, nobody's gonna know about it. Like the movie told you about the character and about this situation. So I don't think that I think that she did have some feelings for Bear, but I don't know if they were like strong enough to be I like you like that, or if it was like I love you, but I love you as a friend, and then Wish Nikki made that love for the friend into love for real. So I don't know. There's no way of fucking knowing because they never explain that. But I think that there was something there, and I don't think that Ian was lying.
There is one thing that does happen in this scene is that Nikki does give a Bear this tiger's eye before all this goes down. And that's interesting because it feels like it's the one actual genuine gift that Bear's been given. And it's coming from the Nikki that he didn't really want, like Wish Nikki. So, what do you think the tiger's eye represents? Do you have any? Did you pick up anything from the scene, as in like subtle meaning? What did you take away from it?
Yeah. So I go back to when, even earlier, like it was when Bear sits back down and he's after talking to Ian and he's about to ask Nikki about her dad. Nikki's like, "What's wrong?" And he says, "Nothing. Don't worry about it." He bitches out again, just like he did when Nikki asked him if he had feelings for her earlier on, and he said he didn't. It's like a really similar situation to that where he stops and just says, "No, don't worry about it." But what's really interesting, though, is that after he bitches out to ask her that question, Nikki then gives him the tiger's eye. And so, like, the tiger's eye is supposed to be representative, like, confidence and strength. I have a tiger eye ring. I love that shit. Tigers are my favorite animal. So, like, my wife got me, like, the tiger eye ring and everything like that for strength and confidence. And it's awesome. And so she gives it to him, like, right after he decides he doesn't want to ask her that question about her dad. And like you said, this is like this whole dinner date is one of those rare moments where it feels like a genuine date and it feels like genuine emotion being exchanged between the two of them. And this gift seems sincere. And Nikki then says, though, that she can't live without him and that she loves him so, 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 so much. And then Bear asks her, "Would you say you love me more than anyone in the world?" And she's like, "Yes, more than anyone in the world." And she like answers sheepishly. And that moment right there, like kind of immediately rips away any genuine feelings about this moment. It just boom, gone in an instant. Because the movie makes you believe for a second. I mean, obviously, like when he's on the phone with Ian, Nikki stands up and she's like looking to see where he goes, and then goes back in the booth. So creepy, freaky Nikki's still there. But then when they sit down and they're having this date, it seems real. It seems like the real Nikki's having this date in that moment. But that quickly gets ripped away when she answers with that. And so like in that moment, I think it's like the final confirmation of, okay, yeah, this clearly is because of my wish. And with the tiger's eye now in his hand, Bear suddenly has the courage to ask the question about her dad. And if her dad is like actually sick. When Bear asks her that question, then you do the no, 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 no. And she freaks out in front of everyone to the chagrin of everyone watching that movie. You're just like secondhand embarrassment out the ass. And she flips out. And that again, like that no 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 that she does is very similar to what Bear was doing in the beginning when he was like mourning the death of his cat, which is a really interesting parallel there. Whether that's intentional or not, I thought that was cool. So whether it was like the tiger's eye that gave Bear courage, or just his realization that it was his wish that caused her to love him, I'm not totally sure, but I think this scene is where we see Bear kind of turn into an actual monster because now he knowingly chooses to continue his charade with her. And like there's a lot of spiritual symbols in this movie also, which is really really clever because it makes a lot of sense, but I think this is the moment where he turns into an absolute bastard. And like the tiger's eye for whatever reason gives him courage and confidence, but like for the wrong things is how it comes across.
For sure. And speaking of an actual monster, so before the ending of the scene, when they're talking things out, Nikki says, "Then why does it matter, about her dad?" And Bear says, "It doesn't matter to me." Then all of a sudden, you have this aggressive sex scene,
Baby.
very aggressive, like cheeks. Yeah, it was rough, man.
Yeah.
It was, and I think everyone in the theater, if you were like me, it was so abrupt. Everyone's jaw just dropped. Like, what?
It was abrupt. It was a lot.
That was crazy. And here's the question: when you watch this scene, does it like show that Bear doesn't really care about Nikki as long as he gets what he wants? And is this like love making, or is this just angry fucking? Is really kind of what it is.
Yeah. Okay, so the first question, so like does it show he just doesn't give a shit about Nikki? Yes. And like he just wants what he wants. Yeah, absolutely. Like, because Nikki's saying, why does it even matter? We're having a nice date. I thought we were having a nice date. Why does it matter? Just before Bear says it doesn't matter to me, tells the whole fucking story. Like, Bear basically uses Wish Nikki's logic of, but we are having a really good time, so why ruin it, to rationalize his own decision making. He's like, yep, she's right. I want to be with her regardless. I'm enjoying this, so I don't care if she lied. And it's also one of those scenes that has like much deeper subtext going on with it. So if you dig into it a little bit more, using public embarrassment and humiliation as a manipulative tactic to take control over your partner is something very real that happens in a lot of relationships. So Bear could have also like agreed with Nikki in that moment just to get her to sit down and not embarrass the shit out of him publicly, which is something that toxic partners can do in relationships to control the other person. And this scene's so crazy because it kind of like flips the idea of who's really in control of the relationship on its head. Because you think up to this point it's Bear. Bear made the wish, he's in control, but she uses that manipulation shit and immediately gets out of a bad situation by embarrassing the fuck out of him. And he's like, okay, well, like just sit down. And then he's like, you know what? I'm cool with it. You're hot. Let's fuck. Then boom, next scene, he's just banging the shit out of her. And they're having sex in this room with very dark music playing. So it's not a hot sex scene. It's not like a romantic one you see in a lot of movies. It's no Wuthering Heights, let's put it that way. So Nikki's face is kind of like emotionless in the middle of this sex scene. She's making all these moaning noises, but her expression is just emotionless and totally flat. And I think that's representative of how Bear doesn't really give a flying shit about how Nikki's feeling or if she's even enjoying it, as long as he gets what he wants out of it. Because like if you look at that scene, his head is off to the left of her shoulder, and like he's not even looking at her face. And her face is turned to the other side. She's looking away from it. Like she's just getting pounded and she's just like, oh, yeah, okay. And like her face is not moving, but like they're not making eye contact. So like to me, this scene had zero romance or passion. This was just an absolute pounding. Like the way that they were having sex with Bear on top, dude. It was
looked dead, man.
It was
looked like a dead body.
It was dead fish all the way. Like the way that they were having sex with Bear on top, just aggressively pounding into her. It didn't look like passionate lovemaking whatsoever. Like it was just lustful, passionate, and loving sex scenes would have like kissing, hugging, they'd have eye contact, there'd be more intimacy involved. This looked like an aggressive, I want what I want, I just want to fuck you type of thing. It almost felt like a hate fuck. Like where he's
It
either
did. It
yeah,
did.
it's like he's
Yeah.
either pissed off at himself or he's pissed off that Nikki lied to him, but he's still horny for her and he just wants to ram her into the bed to get himself off. Like it's
My
it's
God.
it's true
Yeah.
though, but it's like so representative of the state of their relationship now in this movie. Like there's no real passion or love there. It's all just toxic infatuation or romance. There's no question about it. This was like one of the most disturbing sex scenes I've ever seen in a movie. It really was.
It was bad. And this
Yeah.
leads into the next question. Do you
Mm.
think so this is a pretty rough question, so but it's very real. Do you think Bear knows this isn't the real Nikki? And if that's the case, and I think this is what a lot of audiences had a problem with this scene, is this SA?
Yeah, well, I understand why audiences would have a problem with it because it definitely in my mind, yeah. I mean, it's pretty obvious that it is, but I think it's that way for a reason and it fits the plot. So like I understand people not being comfortable with it, but that's the point. Like if you did feel comfortable with this scene, then you're fucked in the head. I think that that is really the point that it's trying to make here is like obviously this is not fully consensual and it's very weird, because like I think I think in this scene it's like he I think he because like he knows it's not the real Nikki at this point. So I would say morally speaking, 100% it's SA. But what was crazy is that it would never, and this is going to sound really fucked up, like I don't think it would ever legally be called SA because technically a version of Nikki is sort of consciously consenting in a way. And again, I know that sounds really fucked up. Like that's from a legal standpoint, but morally and in the context of this story, 100% I think it was SA because like the real Nikki's literally not consenting to anything in this movie. So like you could say everything about this movie is a total violation of her very being. And this scene is just like, this is the real, we're going to beat you over the head with this and let you know this is like, this movie is fucked up and like what he's doing to her is fucked up. And I think it's really just like a moral reckoning of sorts for humanity. It's like consent is very important and you should always have consent before you do anything, especially sexual. But I think that in this, it fits in this movie because the whole movie is about control. And it's weird because, like, as much as bad as it is for Bear and as bad as it looks for Bear, in a very weird way, it's also Nikki manipulating Bear with sex because the diner scene of her freaking out, like, no, 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 no. I thought we were having a nice date. What's going on? Like, why does it even matter? She's using manipulation tactics as well, which are extremely toxic to keep him interested in her. And using sex as a way to do that is another thing that is a violation of the real Nikki and the real Nikki's body. So like Wish Nikki's also committing SA in my opinion, because like she's using that body to do what real Nikki probably would not be wanting to do in that scenario. So I think it kind of goes both ways. It's such a crazy scene. And as fucked up as it is, it really like is one of the most powerful scenes in the movie that kind of really hits you on the head with the theme of the whole thing.
For sure. And I think this kind of hits it home a little bit too is afterwards, um, you know, Wish Nikki says, "That was great, babe." And Bear goes, "Yeah, yeah, it was." like I feel like
It's like,
he was
yeah,
like, "Yeah,
yeah,
it
it was.
sucked, but I had my way." So that's all that matters.
I'm curious. What do you think Bear was feeling in that moment when he was like, yeah, yeah, it was after they stopped?
I think he didn't really care. I think he felt that something with Nikki wasn't normal and this wasn't what he built up in his head and it wasn't what he expected. And he said, "Yeah, yeah, it was cuz he just had his way." Is really what I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, because when he says the first yeah, and like when they finish, he smiles. He's like, yeah. And then the smile kind of fades and it turns into a more somber look on his face. And then he's like, yeah, with sadness and regret in his voice. Like maybe he's realizing afterwards with some post nut clarity that he's taking advantage of
My
her.
God.
Listen, post nut clarity is a thing. I think that he's realizing it's legit. That he maybe is taking advantage of her, and maybe he's kind of realizing how much of a piece of shit he is in that moment. And I also think you're probably onto something too. That he built it up in his head that it was going to be something incredible when he finally had sex with Nikki, but like it's not really her. It's a version of her, but it's not the version that he wanted or that he fantasized about. So I think it's kind of like, yeah, that was great, but then also it wasn't as great as I wanted it to be because it's not really you.
At this time, if you kind of look, it shows the clock, or the alarm clock, the clock, whatever's on the nightstand, and it reads 3:45 a.m., which a lot of people say that's near like the witching hour. Ironic, right? What do you think? Do you think that's reading too far into it? Do you think the time means anything? What do you think, Kern?
Oh yeah, I mean, so 3:45 is within the witching hour. So like I think maybe if there's anything deeper there, I would say it would probably be just the fact that that's typically used as a witching hour time in horror movies. Because like the witching hour times are either midnight or any time between 3 and 4 a.m., which is when witches and spirits are said to hold their maximum power. But like what's really interesting though is that, again, the shadows on the face. Like to me, that's more interesting than the clock and the timing because what happens next, the shadows cast this creepy look on Nikki's face where she looks like an older witch. And so like whenever she has those shadows on her, it changes the way that her face looks and makes her look almost like a witch, especially in this scene here when she's in the corner of the room, which I assume is intentional, like to show that she's under some sort of spell. And like that could coincide with the 3:45 a.m. time period being like a part of the witching hour. And when she's saying all these things in the corner of the room and all that, and she's moaning, it doesn't even sound like her. It sounds more like she's under a spell of some kind. So I think that that's probably what is just like a fun nod to a typical horror trope.
Many fan theories that go on with these things as well.
Yeah,
That once again, it's the reminder of it's not wrong. What people say
it's
could
not.
be correct, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily correct either.
It's not
But it's
wrong
an
until it's
interesting
confirmed
thought.
wrong by the director.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So, and then at this moment, you have Nikki standing in the corner. She screams, "Why don't you love me?" Then walks out with the vase in front of her face and
Hmm.
then walks over to Bear. And some theorize that the reason why is because she's realized if she can see her reflection, the true Nikki will snap back. Do you think that's why? Why do you think she came out with the vase?
Yeah, it's weird. At first, I didn't think that was the reason because I'm like, she's facing backwards. The mirror is behind her. So, like, why would she need the vase in front of her face if the mirror is behind her anyway? And then I'm like, vases also can reflect light. So, like, you can see your face in the vase. So I was like, that's weird. That doesn't fit the narrative of like the mirrors. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, okay, well, I guess it's blocking her periphery from every angle and it's keeping something in front of her face and like blocking her any possibility maybe of her accidentally seeing her reflection. And then she puts the flowers down. She's like, for Sandy, okay? And she acts all normal and sweet again after, why don't you love me? Oh my, which just sent chills down my fucking spine the first time I heard that. That her voice coming out of her is terrifying. I think in that moment too, like when she creeps out of the corner, the way that she creeps out of the corner, she's like sneaks out like a cat. I think she's doing very cat-like things in this scene because I always think another one of my thoughts was like, oh well, cats always fucking knock flower pots off of ledges for no reason, and so I'm like, well, maybe she's got the flower pot, and that's like she's saying for Sandy, okay, like flowers for the cat, acting empathetic. But I do think that looking back on it, she probably was protecting her face, but the mirror is behind her. So I found that weird, but that would explain why she sideways shuffles into the room to avoid looking at the mirror. But then when she lies down and goes into bed, she's facing the mirror again. And like, if you remember, even earlier in the movie, when she's like, "Will you come to bed with me?" and like Bear is standing in the doorway, the mirror is visible in the periphery, like because Nikki's on the bed and she's facing the wall with the mirror on it. It's like the mirror is there. So if she could have seen her face out of the periphery when Bear was standing in the doorway, like confused, "Well, you want me to stay with you?" She could have seen her reflection, but she didn't. So there's things in here where I don't know if they're holes or like accidental holes in that theory, or if that theory is even just totally wrong. I have no idea, but I feel like in that scene it kind of made sense where she protected her face, but I don't know, man. There's little bits and pieces that I noticed where I'm like, she could have seen her face there, she could have seen it there, but she didn't. So it's like I'm borderline on this one. I'm not entirely sure. I think maybe it's like emotional moments maybe bringing out of her. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's even a fan theory that Sandy is taking control over Nikki. And
Yeah.
Indy Navarrete actually was in an interview, and she said, "I like that. We'll go with that." But it
It's
wasn't
fucking
actually
batshit,
confirmed.
dude.
But it's interesting because you know how cats kind of like eat each other, so it would explain kind of the body of the cat on the altar, but also like prancing around like a cat. So you never know. There's so many
Well,
theories in here.
my theory on that is it's like when she's sneaking around, she's wearing Bear's sweater that almost looks like fur when she comes out of the corner, and she has her arms out and she's doing this, like the way that she's moving and the way that she stalks and she moves throughout the house and then like around the corner and the rooms, and like you see her sneaking around. She's very cat-like, very sneaky. She's very quiet when she moves around. So I think there is some very intentional play there to make her act cat-like, because Nikki tries to be everything that Bear wants her to be. And like Bear absolutely loved that cat, and like she wants him to love her as much as he loved the cat. So I think her movements, her cat-like actions make sense in that frame. And like when even when Nikki starts moaning, saying it's like it's not mutual, and she
Oh
starts moaning,
my
that's like
god.
it comes out like a guttural moan that almost sounds like the noise cats make when they're growling at something. They go like it's that like starts low and goes high, and it's really weird. That's what she fucking sounds like. So like I guess I can understand from that perspective. You could see like, okay, maybe the cat possessed her, but I don't think that's what it is. I think it's just more so she's just acting that way because Bear loves the cat. But I don't know, man. That would be really interesting if she was the cat. That would make things very. It's like, Bear, you had sex with a cat, dude.
Dude, that's yeah, that makes it even more
Bestiality
fucked
is the
up.
new theme.
That's
Oh
fucked up.
shit.
Yeah.
But
Oh my god, dude. So then we have this next morning where Bear wakes up and Nikki's in the living room and he goes to the bathroom and sees Nikki's cut his hair. And knowing what we know from seeing the movie and what she did with Sarah's hair, what do you think this means? Like, does this mean something about Nikki cutting Bear's hair? Was she gonna use it for something? Do you think she was gonna put it on an altar? What's your thoughts on this?
yeah, so I think she cuts Bear's hair and she cuts Sarah's for totally different reasons. I think that she cuts Bear's hair specifically as like a kind of possessive keepsake in some way. Like when some parents cut their baby's hair, and like when their baby's really young, they'll cut their hair and keep it in a bag, and it's like a keepsake in a scrapbook. Oh, this is your hair when you were a baby. People also do it sometimes with loved ones who passed away, to keep some of their hair as a way to like keep a piece of them with them. And also people do that with animals who also pass away. Like they'll keep their hair and things like that. So I think it's a thing to remember them by, because your hair literally has your DNA in it. So like it's a literal part of someone's being. So it's very, when someone cuts off your hair, it's like they're taking a piece of you, and it's creepy and very invasive. So I think that's a big part of it. But I think it's like a possessive thing. So I think that could be what's happening here. It could also be some sort of callback to like the voodoo doll in the beginning in the store, because the willow was in between the voodoo doll and the magic eye. So like typically the voodoo dolls, you use someone's hair to control them. Maybe it has some linkages to that. Like maybe she's trying to get him to love her as much as she loves him. Maybe she's doing something while he's not there with the hair. I don't know. But I feel like the most likely is that it's just like some sort of possessive keepsake more than anything else.
So then we have this moment where Bear's talking to Nikki, and he's like okay, he's like ready to go to work, and Nikki hands him his lunch that she made him in a lunchbox. And he turns and she's like, "Well, I can go with you." He's like, "No, it's okay." And he looks and the door's entirely duct taped. She's
It's fucking
duct
nuts.
taped the door. And then he has to pry it open. Like literally peels it off and like has to yank it to get it open. And turns around and then leaves. And then we see Nikki urinating herself, peeing like the exorcist on the floor. And the first thought that came to my mind was Curry Barker says he loves to go to HHN Horror Nights and he would love for Obsession at some point to be a HHN house. Imagine if you went into the room with the duct tape door and Nikki's just standing there peeing in front of you.
Oh my god. Well, they kind of did. They did the Exorcist house, but I don't think they had the
Yeah.
peeing scene in it. I don't. I don't know if they would go.
Crazy,
Actually, yeah, they
man.
did. They did have the peeing scene. The first time they did the Exorcist house, they had her Reagan at the bottom of the stairs, and they had water squirting out of the on the floor.
That's crazy, man.
Because there's not just pee in there. It looks like there's piles of shit in there too. It's disgusting.
So fucked up. So messed up.
Mm.
What'd you think about the scene, Kurt?
Yeah. Well, so I think what's really interesting about or weird about the scene too is that what happens just before. So Nikki's acting all like casual and nonchalant, and Bear is like, "Why did you cut my hair?" Like, and they're having this conversation going back and forth. He's like, "You got to stop doing weird shit. Like, please stop doing weird things." And he's like telling her, he's like, "Just be normal. Just be normal. Like, stop doing very weird shit." I think that scene is creepier on its own because it's like, he's telling Nikki, just be normal, be like Nikki, be like the real Nikki. So like it's cemented. He knows this is not the real Nikki. And so he's trying to tell her to be like the real one so that he can continue living his life as if nothing's wrong. And I think it's just a really selfish, fucked up moment that happens right before he sees this. And she's like, "Okay, no more weird stuff, I promise." And then like she's just really nonchalant, very calm, very casual. Just out of nowhere, he's like, "All right, or not out of nowhere." He's like, I'm gonna go." And she's like, "Okay, well, I could come with you and like visit you on your lunch break." And he's like, "Yeah, maybe." And he turns and he's like, "What the fuck?" And so you finally get that reveal of the taped door. And Nikki continues to act like there's nothing wrong. She's like having trouble with the door when he's like trying to pry the damn thing open. She's like, "You could just, if you can't get it open, you can just stay here with me." He's like, "No, it's okay. I got to go to work. I'll see you later." Like, fucking nuts, dude. I really think that what makes that scene so creepy is the context leading up to it. He's like begging her to just be normal. I think that's even scarier because he just wants her to be normal and like the regular version of herself. So like he wants what he wants. And then she also wants what she wants. And she's trying to trap him at the house. And then she's like saying, "Oh, I won't be weird anymore." And she's really calm and casual about it. And then meanwhile, she spent the whole night fucking duct taping the door. It's just so everything. It's like their actions are not lining up with their words, and I think that goes to a lot of the characters in their development specifically. Is like you're learning that they all have their own selfish reasons for doing everything, and this scene is a testament to that. And then like as for a pissing, my God, man, it's like we said, it's obvious where that inspiration came from. That came from The Exorcist, but like it makes me wonder. Was that Nikki inside doing that like a fear response? Like Bear leaves, now she's there by herself. Was that like a fear response of the real Nikki pissing on the floor? Or was it just like a quick way of showing that she's going to be there for a while? She just doesn't want to leave that spot because like she had to go to the bathroom, but she doesn't want to leave that spot in case she might miss when Bear comes home. So she decides to just piss on the floor, like where she's standing and not move. It's incredibly disturbing. But like, do you think that might have been like Nikki doing that, or was that Wish Nikki just saying fuck it? Like this is my toilet now, and I'm not moving because I'm gonna wait till my love gets home.
That's a really interesting question, but because it could have been the real Nikki, like crying for help that way, like trying to
Yeah,
get someone to notice something. But I think it's Wish Nikki saying fuck it based on what we kind of see later on the floor. That's what
disgusting.
I. Then we go into this next scene when they're at work and Bear is with Sarah, and Sarah's already bringing up how it worries her about Bear because she doesn't want Nikki like taking advantage of him. Do you think Sarah was trying to find out about Nikki and Bear's relationship, and or was she doing this for her own intentions to really find an opening to tell Bear how she feels?
I think maybe a little bit of both. I also think that she was genuinely worried for Bear. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think that she obviously she has feelings for Bear, and she would rather be the one who's with Bear than have Nikki be the one who's with Bear. But in that moment, I think she's like genuinely worried, and it's this scene is really crazy because you see earlier like Ian is very quick to take Nikki's side and Sarah is very quick to take Bear's side. So I think it's really cool because it shows you where their allegiances lie and it kind of shows you who's interested in who and who's connected with who. And so like Sarah's immediately worried about Bear and she thinks Nikki's off her rocker, whereas like Ian thinks Bear is taking advantage of Nikki because Ian was banging Nikki and Sarah's in love with Bear. So like it's really cool because you could see the selfish desires coming through here. Not that Sarah's wrong. I think Sarah's like the only pure one of the group, it seems. But you don't we don't know these characters for real, but it would appear that way. So I think that it's like it's really cool in that sense. You can kind of see where each person's coming from. But I think that she genuinely just wanted to know what was going on in the relationship so she could see if there was an opportunity, like, are things rocky? I could maybe swoop in a little bit, get you to like me instead. And I think that the other side of that is that she's genuinely worried about Bear because Nikki has been acting so strange.
But then, as Bear, of course, opens up the lunch, there's photos on it. And on the photos Nikki put on Bear's lunch, they're pictures of like Bear when he's sleeping and then her
Yeah, she's
like taking pictures of herself.
mm-hmm.
And one of them says, "Not me," under the photo. And it's has the picture of Nikki. Here's the question. Do you think because Nikki was seeing the reflection of herself in the camera, was that the real Nikki writing that on the photo?
I mean, I think you're supposed to assume that was the real Nikki saying like, "This isn't me," and it says "not me." It's like real quick, two words because she probably only had that much time to write "not me." But it's like, did she had time? I think it is. She saw her face in the photo, and I think that like when she sees her face, I think this is the part where it really cemented the when she sees her reflection theory for me, like officially cemented it. I think there's little tiny holes in it throughout the story, but that's normal. It's impossible to plug every single hole. But I think that this is the moment where you really figure out, okay, when she sees her face, she snaps out of it because she's like looking at herself, but it's an out of body experience for her. So yeah, 100%. That was like not me. She said that's not me. That's the real Nikki saying that.
So then Sarah comes back after her dad owns the shop and tells her another college letter that she applied to. And you find out that she didn't get in again. And she lays her head on Bear. And you kind of get the symbolism. Maybe Bear has some feelings towards her too at this moment. What do you think? Or was it just he's just so infatuated by Wish Nikki he's not thinking about Sarah? Or do you think he does kind of have some Sarah feelings here in this moment?
Yeah, I think in this moment, I think the feelings were always there. I think we agree on that. Like I think the feelings were there, but they were buried because of his infatuation with Nikki. And that can happen. Like you don't know like what's in front of like you miss what's right in front of you. a lot of times that happens to a lot of people in a lot of scenarios more than just being in love with someone. So like you don't realize what you have until it's gone, as they say. So like I think he did have feelings for Sarah and they were there for sure, just buried deep down. I think in this moment, like when she has a moment of intimate contact with him, like when she hugs him in the beginning and then she puts her head on his shoulder, I think that those are moments of like the feelings come out and him being there for her and Sarah's always there for him. I think, yeah, he's probably starting to realize like I had feelings for her and they're starting to come out in this moment. So
Which also makes Bear a piece of shit because he's technically doing the
he's
cheat.
kind of cheating. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we have this big moment where then Sarah pulls like the like sticky note. She said, "So what's the verdict on Cat?" And it's
She's like,
like
what the fuck is that?
she's cooked Sandy in the sandwich that he's taken a bite of.
Ugh.
Why do you think Nikki cooked Sandy and put it in Bear's lunch?
There's a lot of theories on this one too, but for me, I think she cooked it for there could be multiple reasons here. So I'll give you just a couple. One, maybe she felt by cooking and serving the cat to Bear, it was like some sort of fucked up way of showing her affection and love for Bear, kind of like what she did with the altar. Like if you eat the cat that you love so much that it could be one within you, maybe something like that. That's like the wishful, cheery way of putting it, if you want to say that. But I think at the same time, it could be like an attempt to wash Sandy's memory and love out of him of the cat. Like you eat the cat, you get rid of the blockage that's sitting there between us. Because again, she thinks that Bear doesn't love her as much as she loves him. So maybe she thinks like it isn't mutual. So maybe she thinks that his love for the cat was an interference. And so, like, she fed him the cat so she can get rid of the blockage. It's really fucked up either way because they don't really explain it. And in my head, again, it's like cooking the cat is kind of cat behavior. Like, if you think about it, because cats kill things and then leave them as gifts to show their appreciation, like we talked about before. So maybe in a way, she thought it was like a fucked up gift, like to show her love to Bear because she continues to kind of act like a cat in so many ways. So who knows, man? What do you think?
Maybe even competition in a way. Whatever had
Cooking the
Bear's
competition.
biggest attention uh, was cooked and served to him, so there's no more competition anymore. Um, I mean, there's also the theory of like consumption, like consuming something you love so much it becomes an obsession. So that's it's very interesting all these theories you can pull from it, but also there's the one that I truly believe that it was just fucked up. And it was
Oh,
just
for
like
sure.
something to put in the movie because it was fucked up.
But it's like,
So
if the competition one is weird to me because I'm like, if it was really competition, she wouldn't have had to feed the cat. The cat was already
yeah.
dead. So, like, where's the competition?
Then Ian's driving Bear home from work, right? Bear keeps saying, like, why didn't you invite me to your party tonight? Once again, this plays into maybe what's going on behind the scenes with these two. But he feels like Nikki's going through something and it looks like Bear's taking advantage of the situation. Do you think Ian didn't originally invite Nikki and Bear to the party because he was upset at them or because he was concerned? Or is this like a slight from Ian because of what he feels is going on behind his back, kind of thing?
Maybe it's a little bit of everything. But I think this question
Yeah.
kind of gets answered in the scene where Ian is basically saying that Bear and Nikki's relationship is really fucked up. And Ian says it looks like Nikki's going through something and Bear's taking advantage of her. I think like the way that he frames it, he didn't want to invite them to the party because he thought it'd be really strange. So I think that he's like concerned about both of them, mostly Nikki, because he keeps blaming Bear, like Bear's taking advantage of her. He's like, doesn't look good, doesn't look good, man. Like you're taking advantage of her. And he's like, and I think he also thinks it just looks bad. So like in that scenario, he doesn't want to put up with that shit at his party. Like he doesn't want to invite that drama into his house, into his party, because he doesn't like their relationship. He doesn't feel that it's real. and he feels something else is going on there. So I think that is the majority of it. And I do think there's probably a little bit of like, fuck them. Like I was hitting that first. Like
Oh
that's
my
how he's feeling a little
God.
bit, like jealousy.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I think most of it is like
Like the dirty salty, like you
yeah.
didn't know, but I was
Yeah.
doing this behind your back, but I'm still pissed about it.
Right. It's like you have nothing, you can't feel salty when you were doing this behind Bear's back, knowing that he loved her. But I think more so in this scene, it's like he just he just thinks it's weird and he's not comfortable with the two of them. He doesn't want them all over each other and attached at his party because it would create weirdness and drama. And I think he's kind of just he told him. He's like, your relationship's fucked up, man.
So you have Bear in this small scene where Bear is in the car after returning home and dropping Ian off. He's like psyching himself up about what to say to Nikki about not cooking the cat and what he's going to
Totally
hang
normal
out with
situation.
Ian tonight. Like, this just goes to show, like, one, he really has no confidence ever. Two, it shows that all the cards in play are with Wish Nikki now, too. But what did you think of the
Hmm.
scene here?
Yeah. I think what you just said is really interesting too. But I also think it's funny because obviously the tiger eye's not working. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that this scene is really enlightening because it's really short, but it's so telling about the relationship because like it offers insight into what toxic overdependence in relationships looks like. Bear knows what Nikki did is fucking awful and despicable, like cooking the cat and feeding it to him. Good God. But he's afraid to tell her that she did wrong because he doesn't want to upset her and he doesn't want her to have another one of her freak out episodes. So, but then at the same time, he's also afraid to tell her that he wants to go hang out with Ian on his own. So he's having to like psych himself up in the car before going inside. And I think this is something that a lot of people go through in relationships, which is horrible, where they feel like they can't be open and honest with their significant other without them using like some kind of emotional manipulation to get them to do what they want them to do. I think this little scene like kind of sums it up perfectly, but it's also funny and ironic because Bear brought this shit onto himself. It's his own fault. He's in this position. But I think it continues to kind of flip the idea of obsession on its head in that like you start out you think it's Bear first, then it flips to Nikki, who's the one who's obsessed with Bear. And then you think Bear is in control of the situation because he made the wish, but then it flips and now actually Nikki's in total control of this relationship and she's using like emotional manipulation to make that happen. So like they're both monsters, but the real Nikki obviously is the victim. But it seems like Bear is becoming a victim of his own creation.
Thanks for tuning in to part 1 of the Obsession commentary. This episode of Talk Fantasy to Me podcast is a ridiculous production. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us reach more listeners like you. And don't forget to like and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Ridiculous Productions for show updates and more content. Talk to you next time.